Today, I have a story for you guys about the most spoiled kid ever. This kid is extremely entitled, spoiled, and arrogant. And at one point, he even cries because he was gifted a Lamborghini. I already know you guys are going to love this story. Leave a like right now for some free air. That's right, free. And also subscribe or follow so we can hit 10 followers or subscribers. That is my dream. Anyways, this story comes from one of my subscribers on Instagram. If you want me to cover your story, head on over to @KeidBoy on Instagram, drop me a follow, and then DM me any story that you might want to tell, and if I find it interesting, I might just cover it. Anyways, on to the story about this super spoiled kid. And remember, as always, for privacy reasons, the names are made up. So our subscriber attended a very prestigious private school. It was one of those really expensive schools that parents would pay a lot of money to put their kids through. So of course, going to school at a very expensive private school, you're gonna meet a lot of spoiled kids. I mean, chances are if you're going to this kind of private school, you yourself are probably at least a little bit spoiled. I mean, just going to a private school alone makes you spoiled a little bit at least. Anyways, our subscriber says that they've encountered all types of characters at this school, but none of them are as unbearable as Jackson. Jackson could be described as the epitome of spoiled and arrogant. He's the kid that everyone loves to hate. The first time our subscriber met Jackson, it was the first day of 5th grade, and Jackson walked into the classroom with a shiny new iPhone, the latest model at the time. Gotta say, I will never understand giving a 10 or an 11-year-old a smartphone. Like, that is the last thing that they need. Giving a 10-year-old instant access to the internet at any time to go see and look at whatever they want, talk to whoever they want, like, that's just not a good idea. Anyways, I'm not the kid's parent, so whatever, they gave him the newest model of iPhones. Now, what I find interesting is that our subscriber says that the rest of everybody in the class still was using flip phones or outdated smartphones, which I guess would make sense because, I mean, if you're 10, you're gonna get a hand-me-down, or you're just gonna get a phone that just does calling, maybe texting. I remember whenever I was a kid, my first phone I got whenever I was in 5th or 6th grade, so I was probably like 11 or 12 years old. And the phone was just this tiny little screen with like 12 buttons on it. I can dial a phone number or like navigate a menu to go to my contacts and then call somebody that I had saved. And to type in letters, you had to click 1 to 3 times on the digits 1 through 9 on the keypad. For example, the number 1 on the keypad had A, B, and C, and if you clicked once on it, it would type in A. If you double clicked it, it would do B, and if you triple clicked it, it would do C. And that's how you would have to text people or type in somebody's name to set them up as a contact. And then on top of all of that, I was only given a certain amount of minutes I could talk to people. So if I was doing a lot of calling, I'd be like in the middle of the call, and then all of a sudden the call would just drop, and I couldn't call any of my friends until next month whenever I got more minutes. But yeah, that was my first phone experience. I'm sure whenever they say that these kids have flip phones or outdated smartphones, it's not nearly as bad as that. But yeah, I was just thinking about that, thought I'd share it. Anyways, of course, Jackson didn't have one of these crappy phones. He had the epic new iPhone. Oh, and not only did he have the new iPhone, he also was wearing a designer backpack and some new clothes. Once again, that is another thing I just will never, ever understand. Buying kids designer clothes. You know, I get it. You might want your kid to like stand out in school so he doesn't get bullied and stuff like that, and he can be the top of the class, whatever, the popular kid. But I mean, I know this is a crazy thought. Kids grow. Yeah, that's right. They grow. They get taller, and they grow out of clothes very quickly. Like, I'm sorry, even if I'm a billionaire and I'm racking in some serious money, my kid is not wearing designer. Honestly, I wouldn't buy him designer at all. I don't think I would even let him buy designer himself until the doctor says, you know, he's fully grown. Because otherwise, that's just a complete waste of money. And sure, maybe you could resell it, but I mean, still, you're gonna be losing money on that for no reason. You can still look good with average clothes, right? Like, maybe get some clothes on the higher end, look fresh, whatever. You don't need that hype beast designer crap, though. Anyways, as our subscriber said, Jackson just had all this stuff, and he was acting as if he owned that place. And that's when they knew that Jackson was gonna be trouble. Our subscriber then talks about how when the years went by, Jackson's behavior just only got worse and worse, and he was getting more and more spoiled, and they could tell. He would brag about the expensive trips his family went on and show off the latest gadgets he had, which, if you guys remember, these kids all go to an expensive private school, and I'm sure that they all go on vacations and stuff like that. And our subscriber talks about how Jackson would always talk about how much money he spent on his trip. So, you know, he's trying to like flex on these kids just because his parents buy him new things and take him on super nice vacations that cost a little bit more money than the vacations that they go on. And it's like such a reach to try and flex on them because because, like I said, these kids have money. Their parents are also wealthy. They're able to send them to this really nice private school. So he isn't that far ahead of the game. It's not that crazy. There's not much to flex, which, I mean, good thing he's in this private school. Otherwise, he would absolutely toast the kids who eat Lunchables for dinner. Which, by the way, I'm definitely one of those kids. Lunchables were absolutely fire. Now, this kid wasn't just spoiled. He was also just absolutely arrogant and rude. If there was a long line at lunch, yeah, Jackson was not waiting in that line. He would just jump right in front of everybody, wouldn't even say, excuse me, sorry, or anything like that, or even try to make up an excuse to skip. He would just go right up there and skip the line. And since his parents were so rich, the teachers wouldn't say anything to him, and he would just get away with it. A subscriber talked about also this one time, it was the first day of school, and the kids were choosing their seats. There was a seat right next to an outlet, which, if you didn't know, outlet seats are like the prime seats in school. Those are the ones to get, because obviously you can charge all your stuff with the outlet. Then also everyone starts asking you to charge their stuff, so that gets kind of annoying. But I mean, the benefits outweigh the cons, right? Anyways, what had happened was there were only 2 outlet seats in the classroom, and both of them were taken. The teacher was doing first come, first serve for the seats, so it was just whoever showed up earlier that day got to pick their seat. And Jackson showed up pretty late, so he would have to find a different seat. Only he wasn't going to find a different seat, and rather he went up to the teacher, whispered something in her ear, and then wouldn't you know it, the teacher came over and demanded that the student move. He probably said something like, "My parents own you, get him to move the seat or else." And she listened, because also this kid's parents were probably just as bad as him. I mean, it just shows. Look at him himself. Yeah, it just really frustrated our subscriber to see how Jackson just got away with everything and got literally everything he wanted. Things only get worse though. There was an incident that happened in 8th grade. So it was Jackson's 12th birthday party, and Jackson was known for throwing some of the craziest birthday parties ever. Everyone would get invited to them, and they were seriously insane. One year he had a whole petting zoo. The other year they rented out a whole amusement park. I mean, just imagine your best ever birthday you had growing up as a kid. Multiply that by like 10,000. Then also take the fact that you're arrogant and your parents are super arrogant and entitled and all of this stuff. You know, it's obviously not actually better than your best birthday, but let's just say the level of his birthday parties were way above the level that ours probably were. Anyways, on his 12th birthday, his parents decided to buy him a present, a big present. They seriously went all out for some reason. I don't know what's special about the year 12, but as our subscriber says, the parents seriously went all out. Right after they sang happy birthday, and he blew out the candles on this huge cake. It was like one of those cakes that you would see on the show Cake Boss, only it was sculpted into a dragon. So I mean, there's that. But I mean, that's nothing compared to the car that came driving around the corner right as he blew out the candles with a bow on it. Yep, that's right. This kid got a car for his 12th birthday present. A car. What? I mean, the kid can't even drive the car for another 4 years. But I mean, you know what? Whatever. They gave him some crappy car so he can look forward to driving a car for the next 4 years. And he could know for certain that he will, in fact, be able to drive in the future. Yeah, so it's just a crappy car, right? Just a crappy car, nothing special. Wrong. This was quite the opposite of a crappy car. I would say it is a crappy car to give to a 12-year-old or anybody who is new to driving. But yeah, they gifted him a brand new Lamborghini. I want to know who his parents are, because like, what is going on here? Lamborghinis are one of the most expensive cars on the market, and Jackson was, needless to say, thrilled at first, but only for a second. His excitement quickly turned to tears as he realized that this Lamborghini had a serious problem. Jackson complained that the color was all wrong and that he wanted a different one. You see, his parents bought him a light blue colored Lamborghini. Jackson wanted a dark blue Lamborghini. Honestly, screw those parents. How dare they mess up his color? Disgusting. Honestly, how dare they buy this 12-year-old kid a Lamborghini for his 12th birthday? Like, what? I'd be extremely frustrated at the fact that he's getting a car, just any car, even if it was like a $500 car for his birthday. I would be pretty frustrated at that fact. I might be able to somewhat create an understanding, but not really. But a Lamborghini? Like, I get that they're super rich. I understand that they have all the money in the world, I guess. But what is he meant meant to do with this car for the next 4 years? Look at it, just like go and sit inside of the car, take Snapchats. Probably exactly what he used it for, by the way. And yeah, this kid was just bawling his eyes out. The parents were just in absolute shock. However, they did try to calm down Jackson by telling him that they can trade it in for a different color. They'll get him whatever color he wants. And yeah, Jackson started to lighten up a little bit, but as our subscriber says, he still seemed to be very mad at his parents during the rest of that birthday party. Anyways, even after this Lamborghini incident, nothing really seemed to change. I think somebody can only be so entitled, so spoiled, so arrogant. But with Jackson, there's seriously no limit. He just kept right up with the behavior. Even as he got older, he would still scold his classmates and try to flex on them, and still demanded special treatment from teachers, which he would always get, which makes it hard for me to believe that this kid even had a social circle like they were saying earlier. Like, no way this kid has friends while acting this arrogant and rich, right? Well, wrong, probably, because let's face it, there's definitely some people out there who are going to be friends with him just because he has this crazy amount of money and they know that they can go and do whatever. So I guess rather he doesn't have any real friends. They're all just fake friends who are there for money, most likely. Even then though, I don't know how somebody could even be a fake friend with him. This kid seems insane. Anyways, our subscriber moves on to say that during a school trip, Jackson actually ended up having a meltdown because he couldn't use his phone. So at the start of the field trip, the teachers took all the phones because they were doing this wilderness hiking thing, and Jackson just wasn't having it. He started screaming and demanding that the teachers allow him to use his phone at once, but they refused. He ended up just complaining the whole entire time and threatening the teachers, saying that my parents will get you fired in a second if you don't give me my phone, and you know, like stuff like that. And it really just made everybody's experience for this field trip miserable. This dude just can't go a millisecond without having all of the eyes on him, whether it be eyes that are annoyed or eyes that are actually interested. He just didn't care. He just wanted all the attention in the world, and of course he was going to get it because, well, Jackson gets whatever he wants. Anyways, as of now, our subscriber says that it's been a few years since the last time they actually saw Jackson, but they heard through the grapevine that he's still the same spoiled kid that he always has been. Only he's in college now, and supposedly his parents have given him his own apartment and credit card, and he is actually now driving the Lamborghini that he got on his 12th birthday. But now it's not a sky blue Lamborghini, it is actually a dark blue Lamborghini. It's pretty clear that he's never had to face any consequences for his behavior, and it's unlikely that he ever will, to be honest. And that's just the sad reality of this world. For some people, everything just goes their way, and for some people, nothing goes their way. Jackson is a prime example of what happens when parents spoil their children and refuse to acknowledge their faults. His entitlement and arrogance will most likely continue to follow him through life, and it really is a shame that he's never had the chance to learn from his mistakes. Our subscriber can only hope that one day he'll realize the error of his ways, but until then, he'll remain the most spoiled kid in the world. Today, I have a story for you guys about this extremely spoiled kid, and this kid is so twisted. He makes friends intentionally with people who are on the poorer side of things, just to humiliate them in the most absurd ways ever. You guys are gonna definitely want to hear this one. We're trying to hit 69 billion likes on this video, so you better help out right now. Also subscribe so we can hit 420 trillion subscribers. We're only a few subscribers away, so let's get there. Anyways, without any further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. So for the story, we're going to call our subscriber Sam. Now, Sam lived on a side of town that was a bit more modest. It wasn't like he was in the slums or anything, but also the town that he lived in, there was a side of a bunch of like very wealthy people, and that definitely was not him. Sam says that he lived in a pretty average home with his mom and his dad. Now, there was another kid who went to the same school as Sam, and we're going to call him Richie. Now, Richie lived on the opposite side of town, and that was where all of the wealthy people were. Richie was the son of a multi-billionaire and was, to put it mildly, ridiculously wealthy. So Sam moved to the school district whenever he was in like 3rd grade, and the first people he kind of clicked with was Richie and his little group of friends that he has. And that whole group of people have been friends for a few years now. Now, at first, Sam really didn't know about Richie's wealth I mean, they were kids, so that really wasn't something that they thought about, but he did realize that Richie seemed to be very nice to him for some reason, like maybe a little bit too nice. During lunch, he would bring, extra things of pudding for all of the friends and like desserts and stuff, and he would always just hook up the friend group with a bunch of stuff he would pack for lunch. Now, the friends always wondered where he was getting this, and they'd be like, dude, like, where are you getting all this extra pudding and stuff from? My mom will never let me take more than one. And he was like, oh yeah, no, we have tons of pudding, don't worry about it. Or, whatever the item was that he was giving away. And usually it would be more than just one cup of pudding. He would get like Capri Suns for the whole squad and pudding sometimes. So, he was kind of spoiling his friend group a little bit. And this for the friend group kind of put Richie in a position where he was sort of the ringleader. Like everyone kind of looked up to him because he kept doing all this nice stuff for them. So, they all thought he was like pretty cool. But Sam notes that something about Richie seemed a little too good to be true. Like it was almost as if he was too nice, or as if there was a different motive behind him being nice. Something just felt a little off to Sam. Now, the other people in the friend group also lived in the same little part of town as Sam, so they weren't very wealthy either, and that's why they were all pretty amazed during this next day. So, on a Friday at lunch, Richie told all of his friends that he was going to be throwing a party at his house. And he said that his parents could handle all the driving and they could just pick him up right after school, and to just call their parents and ask if it was okay to do. So everybody called or texted their parents and they all got their okays. So after school, they were going to be going with Richie and going to his house for a party. So once school was over, they all followed Richie, and as they're leaving the school, there's this huge crowd looking at the car that's in the road at the pickup zone. As they got closer, they realized that it was a limousine. Sam goes to his friends and he's like, dude, who is getting picked up from our school in a limousine? Like, what's going on? It wasn't like there was anything special going on, this wasn't like the school social or like prom or anything like that, which even then a limousine would be pretty extreme to do. But yeah, there was just a limousine in the pickup zone of the school. Everyone was surrounding it, looking like, what's going on? And that's whenever Richie started laughing, and he was like, guys, that's our limousine, come on. And everyone was looking at each other like all confused, like, dude, there's no way you're serious right now. We're getting in a limousine after school to go to Richie's house. Now, at this point in time, none of the friends had really been to Richie's house or knew anything about Richie's house. Like I said, they had no idea at this point that he was as rich as he was. They thought something was up because he would always bring them extra stuff at lunch, but they didn't know why. So they get into the limousine and they're all talking to each other like, dude, this is so cool. Like, what's going on? How do we have this right now? And Richie just had this big smirk on his face and he was like, oh, this is nothing, guys. It's not that big of a deal. Like, calm down. I know it's cool, but this is really nothing. And all the other friends were looking at each other very confused once again. Like, what? Why is he saying this isn't a big deal? Like, this is a pretty big deal. I mean, none of them had been in a limousine at that point ever before. I mean, I haven't even been in a limousine before, and I've been graduated from high school a few years. I'm telling you, I've never been in a limousine. So for these middle schoolers to be in a limousine is pretty wild. So the limousine had a bit of a drive, probably like 15 to 20 minutes. And as they're driving, they keep passing all of these very nice mansions, which these kids knew that there was like this whole entire nice side of town. And their family would take them to look at the mansions and stuff sometimes. Stuff like that. So they knew about him, but they had no idea that Richie was like in this community. So they were like, what are we doing over here? Richie was like, oh, we're going to my house. Like, it's this way. And, as they kept driving, the houses kept getting bigger and bigger, and they were just going up this hill, and all the houses were just absolutely gorgeous. And eventually they get to the tippy top of the hill, and they pull up to these gates, and the limousine driver rolls down his window, buzzes in, and then the gates open up, and they drive down this super long driveway until eventually they see this huge house. Literally the biggest house any of these people had ever seen, except for Richie, of course, because I mean, this was his house, so I'd hope he'd seen it before. But this house looked like a gigantic castle, like something straight from a fairy tale. There was like gardens with a bunch of colorful flowers all around it, some neatly cut bushes. The place itself was made out of this like shiny white stone, with a bunch of tall, fancy pillars, and lots of huge windows. So they walk up to the mansion, and the front door was massive. Like, they had never seen a door that big before. It was ridiculous. But they get up to the door, and Richie gives it a knock, and the doors both open up, and there's this man standing at the front door with his like posture all up, and he had like a little hand towel around his wrist, like the average looking butler dude. And yeah, it was a butler dude. So Richie walks up and he throws his coat at the butler, like literally like just throws it at him. And the butler is like trying to hold back his little annoyed face, but he just takes the coat and hangs it up. Then as the other kids start walking into the house, he asks for their coats or their jackets, and he takes them off for them and then brings them over and hangs them up. And then the butler had all of their friends follow him. He led them down a bunch of hallways. I mean, it felt like an endless maze to these kids. And as they're walking, the whole entire group of friends is like talking to Richie. They're like, dude, there's no way this is like your house. Like, what's going on? Richie was like, yeah, I didn't want to tell you guys, but, this is it. And then he was like, nothing like you guys have ever seen before, right? And all the other people were like, no, we'd never seen anything like this before. And I will say that's a pretty weird remark to say, like kind of odd. Eventually they end up in this dining room area right next to the kitchen. And there's this huge table that goes from one side of the room all the way down to the other. Probably like 30 or 40 chairs at the table. And the whole entire table is just full of food. It was this gigantic feast. Everything looked absolutely amazing. And Sam and his group of friends were all just standing there looking at it. And then Richie looks over to them and he's like, dig in, peasants. Now, that took everybody by surprise. At first, everyone just kind of standing around, looked at each other. Sam was like, what did you say? And then Richie was like, oh, dig in, enjoy the food. Everyone hesitated for a bit, but eventually dug in because the food just looked too dang good. And it was the best food they had ever tried in their life. But as they were eating, Richie kept picking on them for like tiny weird things. And mind you, up till now, Richie was like a pretty cool guy, and he was never known to make fun of his friends or anything. And it was mostly like doing nice things for his friends. So something was very off here. But he made like a snarky remark about Sam's clothes. And as they were eating, one of the friends was like, this is so delicious. And Richie was like, yeah, I know. I bet your parents can never provide you something like this. And at that point, you could tell that the friend was pretty upset about that remark. And they ended up excusing themselves to go to the bathroom, like just a minute after he said that. And everyone could tell that they were just upset. And Sam looked over at Richie and he was about to ask him why he would say that, but he kind of wanted to stay in the mansion that day and, wanted to stay on Richie's good side because he was enjoying it. And I think it was the same for the other friends, which is kind of messed up, but they just wanted to enjoy their time there. They've never done anything like this before or been in a house this nice or ate food that good. So anyways, eventually the person got back from the bathroom. You could tell that they were still upset, but they kind of got over it. And at that point, everyone was done eating. So Richie clapped his hands and he was like, butler, we are done here. Then the butler called over some maids and they started cleaning up all of the dishes. And then Richie was like, all right, guys, you can follow me. I want to show you something. So they walked over to the elevator, which, I mean, they had an elevator in their house, so that's pretty insane. But they get to the elevator and they go up to floor 5. And Richie leads them down a bunch of hallways. Once again, it's like a maze. Like, everything in this house is a maze. Sam says that he doesn't even know how like anybody can navigate around it, even if they lived there for years. But Richie takes them down these hallways and eventually they get to this science lab. There's a bunch of beakers everywhere and there's smoke coming from one of the rooms beside it. And Richie was like, that's my dad in there. He's just working on some experience. We don't have to say hi to him. He's busy. But come in here, guys. I want to show you something. And Richie was like, but don't touch anything because this is very dangerous stuff. Everyone listened and they were walking around and, there were all these flasks, different like chemicals bubbling. And eventually they walk up towards the other end of the lab and there's this vat that is glowing orange. Richie picked it up and he turned and looked at Sam, which Sam said at the time he had this like evil glint in his eye. Like, he just didn't look like the Richie that he had known. And Richie said to Sam, he was like, hey, show me your phone real quick. So Sam pulls out his phone and it's the iPhone 5S that his mom handed down to him. And this was his first phone. He was still a kid, so he didn't need an extravagant phone or anything like that. But that's whenever Richie said, so I noticed you're still using that ancient piece of junk. How about I get you a little upgrade? Sam was like, no, dude, you don't have to do that for me. He was like, my phone's fine. I don't need an upgrade. I appreciate it, but seriously, like, I don't need a new phone. Thank you, man. And Richie started laughing, and then he got real serious. And he reached over really fast and snatched Sam's phone out of his hand. Richie then set the phone in this metal bin and started pouring the glowing orange stuff all over his phone. And this all happened so fast, nobody was able to react to it really. It was like Richie had this whole entire thing planned out in his head already. So as Richie's pouring it, there's like a hole forming inside of the phone, and the phone like catches fire for a few seconds. Sam's like screaming at Richie like, dude, what the heck? I have pictures on there and stuff. Like, even if you're giving me a new one, I just lost all my stuff, dude. Like, this isn't okay. And Sam was all freaking out. You can tell he was getting all stressed. Richie was like, yeah, that's lava. Isn't it pretty cool? Bet you never seen lava before. And Sam was like, cool? No, this isn't cool, man. I just lost everything. You better be giving me a new phone at least. And Richie was like, yeah, you can get a new phone. Now you have a very good reason for your parents to buy you a new one. Oh, wait, you can't afford it, can you? Everyone at this point, this is like the final straw. They were all like telling Richie, you know, this isn't cool. Like, what are you doing? You know, we thought that you were our friend. And everyone was questioning like what was going on here. Why were they even at his house if they were just going to be picking on them the whole entire time, ruining one of their friends' phones? And they were all like, you know what? We want to leave. We want out of here. Like, get us out. And Richie was like, you're going to have to find your way out. So eventually the friends just start running away from Richie. They're like, you know what? Screw you, man. We don't want to be friends with you. And eventually they find the butler and they're like, take us out of here right now. And the butler just starts walking. He walks them over to the elevator and they go down. And then he walks them all the way to the front door. And at this point, Sam doesn't have his phone anymore. His phone was literally melted from lava that Richie poured on it. So he couldn't call his parents for a ride. Luckily, one of the other friends, their parents were able to ride him home. And Sam's parents were pretty mad at him for, you know, not taking care of his phone. And he actually went without a phone for a good few months until finally his parents got like an iPhone 6 off of eBay and gave that to him, which I mean, I guess he ended up getting an upgrade off of it. So he better thank Richie because he really hooked him up with that. But yeah, basically the friend group never talked to Richie again. For a while, they were all talking to each other about like why he would do this. And they were all just super confused why Richie would randomly, you know, do a full 180 and just absolutely embarrass and go in on them and destroy their property after being such a good friend for a while. It seemed to them like Richie was literally friends with them just because, you know, they didn't have as much money. So then he can show off his house to them and make them all jealous and like talk down on them. It's just a very sad thing to see. You know, hopefully Richie matures as he grows up and isn't like that his whole entire life. For a kid to be like that, that's pretty scary, you know? But yeah, everybody realized that Richie didn't genuinely care about them. And you know, all of them had this shared experience now with one of their friends, basically turning into a villain overnight. And if anything, it just made their group of friends a closer, tight-knit group. And for Richie, his life was slowly taking a turn for the worse. His father's business faced a bunch of lawsuits for all these different scandals, and they were really struggling financially. There was no telling what would happen within the next few years. Odds are that they were not going to be able to stay as rich as they were, and were probably going to have to move to a smaller house, which I'm sure is going to really hurt Richie's ego. Today, I have a story for you guys about this kid who claims that he has Mr. Beast's phone number. This kid just does nothing but lie, and it's a pretty funny story. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. Like the video for a helicopter. Yeah, seriously, a free helicopter. And while you're down there liking the video, also subscribe. We're trying to hit 69 trillion subscribers and we're getting super close, so just get us there. And yeah, without any further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. So for this story, we're gonna call our subscriber Jamie. So Jamie went to a smaller school in a little town. You know, there was nothing too special about their school or anything like that. And everybody who went to that school all knew each other. Like, it wasn't like some of those schools where there's so many people you don't even know half of your classmates' names. Anyways, there's this kid who went to school with Jamie, and this kid was in most of Jamie's classes. For the sake of the story, we're gonna call him Kevin. Now, Kevin was one of those kids who would just lie for no reason, and like pretty much everything that he said would just be a lie. Like, for example, whenever a new movie came out and people were talking about the new movie and how much they liked it, Kevin would join in and be like, oh yeah, I saw the movie too, I loved it so much. And then the people who were talking about said movie would be like, oh yeah, no, it was a great movie. What was your favorite part? And then Kevin would be taken aback a bit and he'd just be like, oh, I like the part when the guy does the thing. Yeah, that was a good part. And you know, it would just always be obvious that he was lying, but he would never admit it. Even if he was just straight up caught in a lie like that right there, he wouldn't admit it. Not only would he lie about things that people were talking about, he would also just randomly bring up random topics or random things to try and like flex on the students or, I don't know, like show off or something like that. Like this one day, just sitting around and he was like, yeah, you know, sometimes I ride my electric scooter around outside. It's pretty fun. And it's not like anybody was talking talking about like riding bikes outside or anything like that. Like there was literally no conversation going on whatsoever. It was just like students who were bored, like scrolling through their phone. And then he just says that. Then one of the kids, who of course knew that everything Kevin said was a lie, would try to catch him in the lie and be like, oh, what brand of scooter is it? And then the kid would be like, I forget. I think it's like the Tony Hawk brand or something. Oh, really? You have a Tony Hawk electric scooter. Very interesting. And of course, he would never have pictures or anything to back up his lies. It was always an excuse, or he would just change the topic, or he would just pretend like he didn't hear the question or something like that. Even whenever it didn't make sense for him to lie, he would lie. Point is, Kevin is a liar, pants on fire. Anyways, most of the lies that Kevin gave were nothing too crazy. You know, nothing really ever came out of any of them, nothing bad, other than people just thinking that he's a liar. But there was one lie that kind of led to sort of a big deal for Kevin. One day, a few students were talking about the new Mr. Beast video that came out, and they were talking about how cool it would be to be on the Mr. Beast crew and be one of Mr. Beast's friends. And the students were agreeing. They're like, yeah, you know, that's like my dream job. I hope one day, whenever I grow up, I could be like on a YouTube channel like Mr. Beast, or even be friends with Mr. Beast one day. And you know, it's just the thought. But then, of course, Kevin overhears this conversation and he butts in. He's like, yeah, that would be really cool. You know what else is cool? And then the students were like, oh, tell us, Kevin, what else is cool? That's whenever Kevin was like, me. I'm cool. Want to know why I'm cool? Students were kind of puzzled, but they're like, okay, tell us why you're so cool, Kevin. That's whenever Kevin said, I'm friends with Mr. Beast and I actually have his phone number. At that point, the students just laughed and they're like, oh yeah, sure you do. And that's whenever Kevin pulled out his phone and went to his contacts and showed the group of students a contact that said Mr. Beast with a picture of Mr. Beast on it. And the picture of Mr. Beast, Jamie says, was just a picture that looked like it was taken straight out of Google Images. Like, it wasn't too convincing, but you know, he did have the contact made up, which is just weird. Like, he had been waiting for somebody to bring up Mr. Beast just so he can say this lie. Like, he made a fake Mr. Beast contact waiting for somebody to be talking about Mr. Beast so then he could lie about it. Either that or he's not that crazy and he actually had Mr. Beast's phone number. OMG, did he have the phone number? Was it real all along? Well, Kevin went on to explain how and why he has Mr. Beast's number. He said that one day his family had him volunteer with them and they went to this food bank, and Kevin claims that it ended up being Mr. Beast's food bank. And then it also just so happened that they were filming a Mr. Beast video that day at the Mr. Beast food bank. And Mr. Beast himself was there at the Mr. Beast video at the Mr. Beast food bank. Mr. Beast. Sorry, I was just, that was a bit too much, guys, but just let me have my fun, all right? But yeah, so he's claiming that Mr. Beast was at his food bank filming a video, and then he said that after they were done recording, Mr. Beast came over and thanked all the volunteers, and then Kevin said that he asked Mr. Beast for a picture. Mr. Beast, of course, said, yeah, you know, get over here, you're volunteering for my charity, for my food bank, get over here and take a picture. And then Kevin claims that Mr. Beast was all like, dude, it's really cool that you're volunteering at such a young age, you know, I really appreciate all the help. If there's anything you ever need, just let me know. And then that's when supposedly he got Mr. Beast's phone number. Now, I must say, if this is a lie, this is a pretty well orchestrated lie. But also, with a compulsive liar like Kevin, it's very hard to believe anything that he's saying, and also it's pretty easy to believe that he can come up with such a well orchestrated lie. You know, it wouldn't be that surprising if it came out that this was a lie. So he's telling this story to Jamie and the few classmates standing in the hallway, and that's whenever one of the classmates says, you know, if that's really Mr. Beast, then you can call him for anything you want. Can you maybe like prove it to us that it's actually him? And Kevin was like, yeah, look, it's his contact right here. And the classmate was like, no, I mean, like, can't you like call him or text him even? Ask for a selfie or, you know, show the picture that you said you took with him. That's whenever Kevin was like, oh, well, no, Mr. Beast is busy right now. He's in a very important meeting and the picture was taken on Mr. Beast's phone and he still has to send it to me. So yeah, I don't have it. It was pretty obvious at this point that he was lying. I mean, just making up excuses. But at the end of the day, the classmates weren't really that fazed. You know, Kevin lies all the time. But it seems like Kevin thinks that he got away with it and he isn't caught, which happens a lot. Jamie says that he believes that Kevin probably believes like 90% of the things that he told people were believed by them. But in reality, it's probably like the other way, and 90% of the things that he says, people know that it's a lie. So Kevin just kept going up to more and more people and telling the story just straight up. This time he wasn't listening for people to be talking about Mr. Beast. Rather, he was just going up to people and being like, guess who I have in my phone? Ha 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 ha. And then he'd show them the Mr. Beast contact. And then, you know, a similar situation would play out. The student would want him to prove it. Either that or they just pretend like they believed it because they didn't want to have to deal with Kevin's antics right now. But of course, whenever he was asked to prove it, he would just brush it off and make up some lie or come up with an excuse about why he can't show them that it's real. Unlike the first group of classmates, though, a lot of the people who he told the whole story to were actually believing it. Jamie said that he was walking down the hallway whenever one of his friends came up to him and he said, dude, did you hear that Kevin actually met Mr. Beast? And he has his phone number? Like, maybe he can get us on the show if we ask. That's whenever Jamie was like, do you really believe Kevin? You know he lies all the time, right? And the friend was like, yeah, well, you know, he lies about other stupid stuff, but I mean, his story seems legit and he has his contact in his phone. He even showed me some of the messages. You know, I don't think he faked messages and made a fake contact just to show me. Jamie just nodded his head and he was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Then he said he had to get to class and kept on walking forward. Jamie was just thinking to himself, and he was honestly just baffled that people actually were believing Kevin after they know that Kevin lies so much. Like, that's just a well-known thing in this school, is that Kevin is a goddamn liar. But it seems like this time his lie is so believable that everyone is believing it. Or maybe the lie isn't a lie and Jamie's the one who's in the wrong for not believing. But hey, at least Jamie's doubting the liar, which I mean is a good thing. You should always doubt the kid who lies all the time. Until, you know, of course he gains your trust back or something. But, you know, if somebody just lies and lies and lies and lies and never tries to gain your trust back, can't really trust them, can ya? A lot of people, however, would soon be trusting Kevin more soon and believing his lie, because one day there was an announcement over the loudspeaker that there was going to be an assembly next week, and they were going to have a guest speaker at the assembly, and it was revealed that that guest speaker is going to be Mr. Beast. So instantly, whenever they made this announcement, everybody cracked their heads and turned over and looked at Kevin, and that's whenever even the people who didn't believe him at first started to believe him. They're like, oh my gosh, he actually was here, Kevin. You actually met him. At that point, everyone was believing Kevin. Even Jamie was starting to kind of believe Kevin, because Kevin was saying this long before the assembly was announced. So that must have meant that Mr. Beast was actually in town, because I mean, he's going to be in an assembly with the school. So, you know, it was adding up all in Kevin's favor. And Kevin at first was eating it all up. He was like, yeah, if anybody wants money from Mr. Beast, just let me know. I'll ask him for you. If you want a free gaming computer, just I'll ask Mr. Beast. You guys want a shout out from Mr. Beast? I got you. You know, he was just telling everybody that he was going to hook him up with the Mr. Beast juice. But these were all promises that he probably wasn't going to be able to keep, even if he actually had Mr. Beast's phone number. But he was loving the attention, man. All eyes were on him. All the focus was on him. Everybody wanted to talk to Kevin because he actually had Mr. Beast's phone number, or at least that's what everybody truly thought. So the day of the assembly finally comes around, and over those past few days, like I said, Kevin is just eating up all the attention. He's saying all this crazy stuff about Mr. Beast and how he talked to him the day before and had a conversation, all of this stupid stuff. But yeah, the day of the assembly finally arrives, and everybody goes to the gymnasium, and after everyone gets settled down, the principal talked for a few minutes about building businesses and philanthropy and all of that, and then the principal announced that they had the perfect person to talk about all of this, and that's whenever they introduced Mr. Beast. Everyone was freaking out. Jamie says that had to have been the loudest that gymnasium has ever been. Like, kids were screaming and squealing. There was 2 or 3 kids who even tried to hop over onto the gymnasium and run at Mr. Beast, but one of the teachers put a stop to that and they got sent to detention. Yeah, he was there, and eventually he was like, all right, everybody, quiet down. I'm so glad to be here today. And then he started talking about all the stuff he wanted to say for the assembly, and, you know, the whole reason he was there, to talk about how anybody can follow their dreams and, you know, to never give up. And of course, he was talking about his philanthropy and how charity is important and all of that. And, it was a pretty long speech. Everybody was listening very close because, well, this is like pretty much everyone in the school's favorite YouTuber, or at least everyone in the school knows him from YouTube. Like every kid out there at this point knows Mr. Beast, right? So that's a big deal for him to be at an assembly at your school. That's like probably the coolest thing ever. And then after he wraps it up, he asks if anybody has any questions, which of course, like the whole entire gymnasium had questions. Everyone was raising their hand. People were jumping, shaking their hand, trying to get their attention, yelling. And Jamie just sat there with their hand raised high, not moving it back and forth, not screaming or jumping or anything like that, which honestly, that was a strat I used to do, thinking that I was going to get picked for not being the rowdy one. But then they'd always pick the rowdy ones anyways. And I was like, are you serious, man? I'm trying to be composed and nice. But instead you pick the kid who's like screaming in your face to pick you or else. Anyways, that didn't happen here. Mr. Beast pointed right at Jamie and was like, you there in the blue shirt, which Jamie was wearing a blue shirt. If you couldn't guess, he was like, you there in the blue shirt. What's your question? Ask away. And that's whenever Jamie was like, hi, Mr. Beast. Huge fan, by the way, but I have a question about one of your friends. You see, there's a kid in our school who claims to know you personally and says that he has your phone number. His name is Kevin and he says he met you at a food bank in our town. Is this true? I was just wondering because he always talks about it, but I just don't believe it. A whole gymnasium did a 180. It turned from being all rowdy of people trying to get Mr. Beast to pick them for a question to absolute dead silence. You could hear a pin drop in that room. Everyone had their heads turned, looking at the same thing. They were all looking directly at Kevin, and Kevin was extremely nervous at this point. He shrunk down in his chair, and his face was getting beet red, and you could tell he was extremely nervous. Which, I mean, how couldn't you be with everybody staring at you like that? And Mr. Beast himself, Jamie says, looked pretty confused, saying that he looked puzzled for a minute before responding. And then finally, Jimmy says, Kevin, huh? I can't say I know a Kevin personally, and I definitely don't give out my phone number to people I don't know. I'm sorry, but it seems like he has been telling stories, but it doesn't mean we should make fun of him or anything. It just means he's a fan, and I appreciate that. The silence in the room at that point was absolutely deafening, Jamie said. Kevin was extremely embarrassed, avoiding eye contact with anyone. I mean, Mr. Beast just exposed him big time, even though he probably didn't mean to expose him that bad. But I mean, it was a question he had to answer. I guess he could have played into it and been like, oh yeah, Kevin's my best friend. But no, Mr. Beast doesn't like liars. And Kevin just had to sit there with the truth being out and nowhere for him to hide. After that, people went up to Kevin and were picking on him for lying. And Kevin would just walk with his eyes straight forward, ignoring absolutely everyone and everything. He was just going through his days at school, not talking to anybody. He was so embarrassed every single day, you could tell. And Jamie, seeing this, didn't really pick on him or anything like that. But they sat there and thought to themselves, like, I was right this whole time. Like, I don't know why people believed this. But then, it added up with him coming to the assembly. It just so happens that he lied at the perfect time, I guess. And of course, eventually, all the negative attention on Kevin kind of faded away. And honestly, this ended up being a good thing for Kevin because he wasn't going around and making up random lies or butting into people's conversations and making random crap up anymore. And as all the negative attention on him faded, he kind of got more comfortable and, started talking to his friends again. And yeah, it's safe to say that Kevin learned the very important life lesson that honesty is always the best policy. Today, I have a story for you guys about one of my subscribers who claims to have met Mr. Beast. They talk about how they got to compete in a Mr. Beast challenge, and they go into details about what it's like behind the scenes. And they also claim that Mr. Beast was mean to them. I don't know how true that is, but we'll soon know once we read the story. Leave a like for the ability to blink. Yeah, that's right, I'm talking about your eyelids. You'll be able to close them and open them. It's really cool, trust me, you definitely want to try it out. And while you're at it, also subscribe or follow depending on where you're listening, which by the way, if you guys didn't know, all of these story times are available to listen anywhere where podcasts are available. You could either look up KeidStories or click the link in the description or in the pinned comment. Anyways, with that all being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. So our subscriber starts off by saying that they were strolling around a Walmart. At the time, they were just looking for some snacks to take home so they can go and binge the new season of Outer Banks. As they were looking for snacks, snacks though, they say that they stumbled upon a group of people gathered around in the snack aisle. At first they thought it was just some promotional event for a new snack coming out or something like that, but as they got closer, they realized who it was. It was none other than Mr. Beast himself. Our subscriber says that they truly couldn't believe their eyes. They really didn't believe it. At first they thought it was just a doppelganger or maybe Mr. Beast from Ohio, but once they also saw Chris and Chandler there, they realized that the chances of a doppelganger of Mr. Beast, Chris, and Chandler all in the same place at a Walmart were pretty low. And yeah, they knew right then and there that that was in fact Mr. Beast. They were super excited because, as they say, they were a huge fan of Mr. Beast's YouTube videos. And there he was in the flesh right in front of them. Now, as our subscriber says, there was a huge crowd around Mr. Beast, like literally tons of people, which by the way, I just gotta say, it must suck to not be able to go out in public without attracting a crowd. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that Jimmy appreciates his fans, but since he's so popular, more specifically so popular for giving away tons of money to random people, nobody who knows who he is in public is gonna see him as a normal person. He's gonna attract large crowds of people, mostly kids, who think that they're gonna get some free money or a free PlayStation or something from Mr. Beast. And I'm sure that that was what was happening here. Anyways though, our subscriber didn't really care about getting free money or anything. I mean, they said that if the offer came up, of course they would take it, and they may or may not end up taking an offer for some free money from Mr. Beast later in the story, but at the end of the day, they just wanted to try and get a picture with Mr. Beast, mainly because they thought that none of their friends were going to believe that they actually saw him, so they needed some photographic proof. And what better photographic proof than a selfie with Mr. Beast himself? So our subscriber made their way into this small crowd and scooted their way up to the front. Mr. Beast was being very nice and friendly and taking pictures with all of the people there. After each picture, he was kindly asking them to move away so the rest of the kids could get a picture as well. Finally, whenever it was our subscriber's turn, they say that Mr. Beast asked what their name was. Our subscriber told him their name and said that they were his #1 fan. And that's whenever Mr. Beast asked what our subscriber's favorite video from him was. Our subscriber told him that it was the video where he eats the world's most expensive pizza. And Mr. Beast asked him why he liked that video so much, to which the kid replied that he loved pizza. And then as the kid explains, Mr. Beast was all like, I also love pizza. And then they chatted a bit about their mutual love for pizza. Our subscriber was honestly really impressed with how down to earth Jimmy seemed, because even though he had a huge following and this crowd of kids waiting to take a picture, he still took the time to not only take a picture with our subscriber, but also chat with him for a bit. But this is where our subscriber says that things took a turn for the worse. Our subscriber claims that Mr. Beast started to really get full of himself, acting like he was better than everyone else. Now, of course, they're going to share more details, but immediately I'm going to just take a guess and say that Mr. Beast maybe ran out of time and wasn't able to take any more pictures or something like that and needed to get out of the store. So he probably just started ignoring people and tried to leave, which I mean, if you're as famous as Mr. Beast, that's just something that you got to do. But as of right now, I'm only guessing. I don't know what's about to happen, but I'm just giving Mr. Beast the benefit of the doubt. I mean, we do got to take everything this kid is saying with a grain of salt, because I don't really know how likely it is that he even actually met Mr. Beast in the first place, and whether or not that's true, let alone the rest of the details of the story, including Mr. Beast being supposedly mean. Anyways though, our subscriber goes on to say that Mr. Beast took off his hoodie to reveal a shirt he was wearing that said, quote unquote, I'm the best. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous, but maybe it's a part of a video or something. I don't know, man. Let's continue on in the story though. Our subscriber says that this is whenever he started promoting his new product Feastables to the crowd. He grabbed a Hershey bar off the shelf, opened it up, and broke it in half, then threw it on the ground. And then he told all of these kids in the crowd who were there trying to get a picture with him that Feastables were better and that they were the best chocolate bars ever made and that all of these kids had to try them. This is when our subscriber says that Mr. Beast asked for one volunteer from the crowd to do a challenge. Now, of course, all the kids were all excited. Everyone was raising their hands saying, pick me, and basically everyone in that crowd wanted to be a part of this challenge. Even most, if not all of the parents were also raising their hand and shouting at Mr. Beast. Our subscriber too was trying to get picked, and coincidentally enough, they got picked to do the challenge. And now this story is getting more and more difficult to believe. I mean, it's already hard to believe that he even met Mr. Beast in the first place, and then they're saying that he was mean, wearing a shirt that says, quote unquote, I'm the best, which already sounds absolutely absurd. And then they said that they were picked to compete in a Mr. Beast challenge. That was 1, 2, 3 strikes of fishy details. Anyways, regardless regardless if this is true or not, I'm still pretty invested in this story and I want to know where they take it. Our subscriber claims that Mr. Beast handed him a whole entire brand new box full of Feastables. And then Mr. Beast supposedly said, to prove that you are a true fan, eat this whole entire box of Feastable chocolate bars. Guys, just imagine that this story is real. Mr. Beast forcing a kid to eat a whole entire box of Feastable chocolate bars? Yeah, okay. Anyways, our subscriber says that they were, of course, up for the challenge, and they took the box of Feastables and started munching away on them. But our subscriber claims that the chocolate bars were awful. He said that they tasted like cardboard and that the texture was all wrong, claiming that they could barely choke down one bar, let alone a whole entire box of them. Our subscriber says that as Mr. Beast watched them struggle to even eat one chocolate bar, he just sat there laughing at their pathetic attempt. Our subscriber then claims that Mr. Beast even made fun of him for not being able to finish the chocolate bars. Like, okay, dude, whatever you say, I'm sure this is all true. I mean, if this is true, Mr. Beast's career is over. Let me just say that. I mean, let's just do some math here real quick. One milk chocolate Feastables bar contains 2 servings of 170 calories and 12 grams of sugar. Each box of Feastables has 10 chocolate bars or 20 servings. So one box of milk chocolate Feastables, in total, if the kid ate all 10 of them, he would have had 3,400 calories and 240 grams of sugar. So I'm sure the kid would feel great after eating all of that chocolate. Anyways, our subscriber says that this wasn't the only challenge that Mr. Beast gave them. They asked for a few more volunteers, and after Mr. Beast picked 3 more people, he had our subscriber and the 3 other volunteers stand shoulder to shoulder in the shape of a square. He then brought out a roll of duct tape and had his bodyguards make some room from the crowd. Our subscriber then claims that Mr. Beast used the duct tape to make a square around himself and the 3 other volunteers. He then said that Mr. Beast told the kids whoever could stand in this square for over 24 hours will get a lifetime supply of Feastables. At first, our subscriber thought that this was going to be super easy. However, to be honest, they kind of didn't want the Feastables because they really didn't like them and said that it tasted like cardboard. By the way, I personally have tried Feastables and I think that they're pretty good. I will say they aren't absolutely amazing, but they are decent. Anyways, what made our subscriber actually decide to compete in this challenge and go for the long run is the thought that he'd be able to sell the Feastables that he gets for free to kids in his school. And honestly, that's a good idea. I mean, if you even just bought Feastables at the normal price and brought them to school, I bet you could turn some profit by selling them to your classmates. Getting them for free though, I mean, you'd actually be rolling in some dough. Anyways, like I said, at first, our subscriber thought that this was going to be super easy. They were thinking to themselves, how hard could it be to stand in a square for 24 hours? But for our subscriber, as minutes turned to hours, they started to feel some serious strain on their legs and back. After all, they had to stand in the circle, and there was nothing for them to shift their weight onto. So they were stuck just standing there shoulder to shoulder in one position the entire time. Our subscriber says that it was like torture. Yep, Mr. Beast's career is definitely over after this one, guys. Torturing children for a YouTube challenge. Yeah, that's game over. Who am I kidding? That wouldn't be game over. What's actually game over is whenever Mr. Beast cures people's blindness. That's what gets him canceled. So I'm sure if the internet, more specifically Twitter, saw that Mr. Beast was forcing kids to eat 10 chocolate bars and then stand in a circle for 24 hours, they wouldn't have a problem with that. They would just have a problem that he cured people's blindness. Anyways, yeah, I mean, this story is like very obviously fake at this point. But like I said, it's interesting. This kid is really good at making up stuff, let me just say. They said that as time went on, one volunteer left. They guess it was something like 2 hours into the challenge. And like I said, our subscriber and the rest of the volunteers left were really struggling. But as they claim, to make matters worse, Mr. Beast started to mess with the contestants. He claims that Jimmy would come over and start to poke the kids and try to make them laugh. Or he would have Chris or Chandler come over and make weird faces at them. Like, seriously, where is this kid coming up with this stuff? Why would they go up and make weird faces at them? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Anyways, our subscribers said that it was super humiliating, but they didn't want to give up, and they were determined to complete this challenge and get the free chocolate bars no matter what. The subscriber claims that after 10 hours, it was down to just him and one other volunteer. Now remember, this wasn't a competition to see who was the last person to be in the square. It was more just an endurance test to see who can spend 24 hours in the square to get free unlimited chocolate bars from Mr. Beast. Our subscriber claimed that after 16 hours in, the other volunteer left, and that they were the only person left. But like they said, they were determined, and they were gonna get this free chocolate. Now, of course, if this was reality, I doubt this kid would make it even like 4 or 5 hours. Like, standing for that long just as a kid without sitting or any breaks or anything like that, it's just way too much. He would have been out of there. But of course, he has to look like the hero for his story that he's making up. So the hero he is. He says, finally, after what felt like an eternity, the 24 hours were up. He says that he was dizzy and disoriented from standing in one spot for so long. But he said after the timer was up and he looked up, of course expecting Mr. Beast to congratulate him, he claims that Mr. Beast just walked away laughing with his friends and didn't grant him any prize. Yep, I'm very, very sure. Anyways, our subscriber goes on to say, I felt so used and humiliated. I thought Mr. Beast was a nice guy, but he turned out to be a total jerk. And those Feastable chocolate bars, they're a total scam. Don't waste your money on them. Okay, buddy. I'm sure that story was 100% true and authentic. I actually ended up responding to this person and asking them to send the selfie that they said they got for proof, and they just sent me the laughing emoji, so I guess that they too knew that it was fake. But I mean, hey, that was a pretty good story nonetheless. Today, I have another spoiled kid story for you guys. This one is about one of my subscribers who was friends with the spoiled kid, and they went to Disneyland together, and it's definitely one of the most severe cases of spoiled kid syndrome I've ever seen. And then also the kid's parents are pretty entitled as well. I'm sure you guys are gonna love it. Make sure you guys like the video right now for free air. Subscribe to help me get to 10,000 subscribers. And yeah, with that all being said and done, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. So this all started whenever my subscriber was invited to go to Disneyland with one of his friends. He was super excited as this was going to be his first time ever going to Disney, and he was going to get to go with one of his good friends at the time. For the sake of the story, we're going to call our subscriber Noah, and his friend, we'll call him Tim. So Noah was super excited to go to Disney, like I said, but first he'd had to convince his parents to let him go. This should be easy though, because his parents weren't super strict. The only problem Noah was probably going to run into was money problems. He was pretty doubtful that his parents were going to just give him a bunch of money randomly to go to Disney World and miss out on a bunch of school. But I mean, how could he not take his chances? So right after he got home from school, he told his parents the news. He told them how Tim was allowed to take a friend with him to Disneyland and that Tim wanted it to be him. And as expected, the parents, who you could tell were very sad that they had to say this, said that they just simply didn't have the money to send him to Disneyland right now. Now, Noah was understanding, of course, but regardless, he was pretty upset. He messaged Tim on Xbox and told him the sad news. Noah's message said something like, hey man, I was really excited to come to Disney, and my parents would have been cool with it, but they say that they just don't have the money to spend right now. And that's whenever Tim responded with, oh, so they don't care if you go? You can come? And Noah was like, yeah, they wouldn't care if I went, but no, we don't have money. And that's whenever Tim responded with just LOL all caps. He told Noah that this was part of his birthday and that he was never gonna have to pay in the first place. Tim literally thought that Noah was joking with him, asking him if that was like a joke, saying that he couldn't come because of money. Noah, all excited, told his parents, and they were like, if they really are paying, yeah, you can go, but make sure you say thank you a million times. And also, of course, they made sure that he kept up with his schoolwork. Noah, of course, agreed, and he started packing up for Disney World. They were leaving just the next day after school, so this was on really short notice, and it was a pretty sporadic decision. So during school the next day, Noah got all of his schoolwork that he needed, and I mean, there was a lot, but he didn't really care. He didn't want it to distract him during the vacation, and to be honest, Noah was like a C average student, so he probably wasn't going to be doing the work anyways. I mean, if you're going to Disney World, are you really going to be worried about homework? I mean, me personally, absolutely not, but make sure you do your homework, kids. Seriously, do your homework. Noah leaves school early that day along with Tim. Tim's parents picks them both up. Noah's parents already dropped off the suitcase at their house earlier, so they were ready to go to Disney World straight from school. So after checking out early from the school office, they go outside and start walking towards Tim's car. Now, Noah at the time, even though he was pretty good friends with Tim, he hadn't really been to Tim's house. They were more friends in school, and they would play a lot of video games together. So this was his first time at meeting Tim's parents, and also his first time seeing what Tim's actual life was all about. So they get to the car, and no joke, Noah, our subscriber, says that the car that they walked up to that they were going to then go inside of was a straight up Lamborghini. Now you may be wondering how Tim and Noah, the mom and dad, were all going to fit into one Lamborghini. Well, they weren't, because it's only two two seats and no one was sitting on laps or anything like that. Rather, another Lamborghini comes around the corner. It was Tim's dad in a green Lamborghini. Tim's dad rolls down the window and goes, "So, who's coming with me?" Tim was like, "Hey, Noah, you can go with him. I want to be with my mom." So Noah, very confused at this point, goes, "Okay," and he gets into the green Lamborghini with Tim's dad inside. Meanwhile, Tim got into the blue Lamborghini with his mom. I mean, like, holy crap, 2 Lamborghinis, one family, each of them taking one of them to go to the airport. Apparently, they're just super poor. Like, why were they not driving Bugattis, is my question. Anyways, Noah gets into this super cool car. Tim's dad goes, "Who's excited for Disney?" That's exactly what he sounded like too. I do a really good impression of Tim's dad. I heard some audio recordings. Then he pulls out this Disney gift bag that was literally just like a present full of Disney stuff. And he gave it to Noah. He said, "This is for you, bud. We're gonna have the best time ever." At this point, Noah was ecstatic. I mean, he just got to get inside of a Lamborghini. He was now driving in a Lamborghini on his way to Disney World, where he was gonna get to go there for completely free. He was missing school, and now Tim's father was giving him a Disney care package. It had one of those necklaces that you put all the Disney pins on. Then it had a bunch of the tradable Disney pins that you put on the necklace. It had a few Disney themed shirts, some Mickey Mouse ears, you know, all of that good stuff. Now, me personally, I wouldn't have gotten like 90% of this stuff even at the park, but Tim's father was getting this just for his son's friend even before the trip started, before they even got to the airport. That's pretty crazy. Like, I'm pretty sure the last time I went to Disney, which was probably like around 10 years ago, could be even longer to be honest, maybe it's more like 13 years. I think I did get one of those pin trade necklace things with like maybe 4 or 5 pins, and I still have that thing to this day. But that being one of the quote-unquote tiny things that Noah was gonna get, that's pretty wild. I mean, those things ain't cheap. It's Disney branded. Those things are expensive. Anyways, as they got to the airport, Noah noticed how rich this family actually was. He truly didn't know prior. First thing he notices is that they went through the fast lane in security, you know, the one that you have to pay for that nobody ever pays for. Yeah, they got to skip all the security. They didn't have to wait in the long line that was there. Then, right after they made it through security, they went and got something to eat at one of the fancy restaurants in the airport. Now, Noah was only given a few $100s, so he was trying to be very careful with how he spent his money. So he said he wasn't hungry and only ordered a tiny bit of food. Then whenever the waitress came around to get checks, Noah was trying to tell the waitress that his was separate and that he was going to pay for his own meal. But then the family was like, "No more of that for the rest of this trip, all right? You're not paying for anything. It is Tim's birthday and we're going on vacation. You're not paying." Now, Noah, of course, you know, kind of embarrassed at this point, confused. He simply just said thank you, but you guys know that situation whenever you get put in it. It's always kind of awkward. I know me personally, I always feel wrong taking the free stuff, but I don't go back and forth with like all the, no, please don't pay for me. If they say it more than once, I'll let them pay for me, all right? Vice versa, you know, I'll usually return the favor next time I go out to eat with my friends. If they pay for me, I'll pay for them next time. Anyways, they get on the plane. Of course, you know, they're flying first class. They have those nice comfy seats that recline and everything. I mean, I guess Tim has just been living in luxury in secret this whole time because Noah was seriously so shocked by all of this. Even to this day, after everything that happened, Noah doesn't even know what his parents do for a living, but I guess that they make a lot of money. Maybe they own like Tesla or something. I seriously don't know. So the first day they get to Disney World and they're just spending time in the hotels. Noah says he can't even estimate how much money they spent simply just at the hotel the day before that they even went inside of the park. But basically his parents were just buying him anything and everything. And for the most part, anything that Tim wanted to do, the parents would pay for both Tim and Noah to do it. So that was all fun, but then finally the day of Disney World came to be. They finally were going to be visiting the park. Now, today was actually the day of Tim's birthday, so you know, this is like kind of his birthday celebration. So pretty much, since his parents have so much money, and you know, Tim is pretty spoiled. I wouldn't even say pretty spoiled. This kid is extremely spoiled. He was going to be asking for anything and everything at Disney that day. But were his parents going to let him do and get whatever he wants? I guess you're going to have to find out. So once they enter the park, Tim points to the skip your line thing and he says, "All right, we're going there right now." It wasn't even a question on if he can go there or, you know, can we go there in a second? So is everything good? No, it was, we are going there now and we're buying us all skip the line tickets. Yet Tim was not going to be waiting in line at Disney World on his birthday. Absolutely not. So they walk over to the building where you buy the skip the line thing. And ironic enough, there was a line to skip the line. This is whenever Tim starts to get all whiny. He goes, I thought that I was not going to be waiting in lines today. He was practically yelling, but he wasn't quite there yet. But you can tell he was pretty mad. That's whenever the parents said, this should be the only line we're waiting in today, honey, because we're going to be buying the thing and then we can skip lines, all right? I promise. That's whenever Tim's entitlement came out and he said, screw this, I'm not waiting in line. And he told mom to give him a crisp $100 bill, which for some reason she gave it to him. And then he walked to the front of the line and said, here, this is for you. Just let me go in front of you and buy my tickets. Now, this guy at the front of the line was like, okay, here, take it. I'll take the money. Yeah. I mean, how couldn't you? The dude probably just dumbly spent $250, $260 to skip lines at Disney World. Of course he's going to want $100. So yeah, Tim skips this line. Now, the other people in between who were also waiting were pretty mad, but I mean, at the end of the day, if that guy up front lets you in front, then guess what? You're in front. So they get the tickets and they continue on walking through the park. Now, since they had these fast passes, they were not going to have to be waiting in lines at all that day. They could just go and walk through the fast lane. And that's exactly what they did. So they got to ride pretty much all of the roller coasters that they wanted to pretty quickly. And after a few hours, they were pretty much done with the rides. They went to one of the small stores and got some snacks. Of course, Tim's parents paying for absolutely everything. But then Tim decided that it was time to go shopping. Now, Noah mentions that he is literally not exaggerating whatsoever here. Tim wanted to go to every single store that they passed. And I mean every single store. There was not a single store being passed without them at least entering it. Now, granted, some of them, Tim would just walk in, notice he doesn't want anything, and then he would leave. But for a lot of them, Tim would make his parents buy him all kinds of stupid stuff. I mean, some of it is cool, right? Like, there's some cool stuff in those Disney stores that would be awesome to have. But, I mean, the majority of it is stuff that you're not going to be using past, like, your day at Disney. Anyways, Tim got pretty much everything. He got those light-up swords, some giant plushies, 3 different types of Mickey Mouse ears for some reason. Noah says that the pin necklace that Tim had was completely full. Like, at that point, there was no room for any more pins. It was literally just a necklace made out of pins, which, if you guys didn't know, those Disney pins, they cost a lot of money. Like, they're not cheap at all. But that was like the big thing that Tim was buying. He wanted every pin, basically. And you know, it was Tim's birthday. Of course, Tim was gonna get every single pin that he wanted. Anyways, they ended up spending more time shopping than they did riding rides. I mean, like Noah said, it only took them a few hours to get all the rides done, but they still had plenty of time left in the park, and all they did was just shop and shop and shop. And they seriously had so much stuff that everybody in their party, Tim, his mom, his dad, and even Noah, was carrying so much crap. And on top of that, his dad was also lugging around one of those wagons full of stuff too. No joke, they probably had like $50,000 worth of souvenirs and Disney stuff that they were carrying around. Everyone had to have been looking at them like they were crazy or just rich, or maybe both. Anyways, as the sun began to set, the group started making their way towards the Disney castle because they wanted to watch the end of the day Disney parade and the fireworks. However, there was a big crowd, but Tim wanted to be at the front of this big crowd because he wanted to go and see the parade. So of course he asks his mom for some more money, which of course she also complies with. And he starts just giving a bunch of people money as if he was like Mr. Beast or something, and they let him move up in front of them. I mean, all the parents that he was offering money to probably just spent a ton of money on their kids in Disney. So once again, how could they not accept this money? Like, if some kid comes up to me in Disney after I just spent a dumb amount of money, I would gladly take the money and let him go in front of me. Also, at least he's not just pushing his way through, you know, he's offering money for it, right? I mean, sure, it's entitled, sure, he's spoiled, but at least he's respectable. Well, the next thing he would do isn't that respectable, but I digress. So the parade starts, and that's whenever he looks over to his mom, and he says that he wants to ride on one of the parade floats. The mom was like, that's impossible. We just can't do that. We can't offer them money or anything. Like, there's just no way you're going to be able to get on one of these parade floats, Tim. And then he looked over to his dad, and his dad was just like, yeah, I mean, she's right. There's no way we can get you on the parade float. I know it's your birthday. I think you had a pretty good birthday so far. Wouldn't you say so? And Tim was like, all of this will mean nothing unless I get to go on a parade float. At this point, Noah was just absolutely baffled at Tim. I mean, he wasn't going to say anything. It was the dude's birthday, and he was his friend. But Noah was just thinking to himself, like, no way he's saying all of this and demanding that he gets to be put on a parade float after his parents just spent so much money, like literally so much, a ridiculous amount of money on him at Disney. And also on Noah too. Like, the parents have been buying Noah stuff too. Anytime they bought Tim something, they would try and, you know, find something or at least offer it to Noah. But Noah often would be like, I don't need that. I really don't want it. I wouldn't use it. Like, please don't buy it for me. And though sometimes the parents would ignore Noah, other times they'd be like, okay, yeah, I can see why you don't need that. But of course they would still buy it for Tim. Anyways, point is, Noah just could not believe how unappreciative Tim was. So at this point, Tim really wanted to go on the parade floats, but his parents, for the first time of the whole entire day, told him, no, like, this isn't going to be possible. I'm sorry, we would if we could. And that's whenever Tim just went, left out a big laugh, and he sprinted straight to one of the parade floats, like literally right in the middle of the parade. He jumped up on one of the parade floats and took it for a ride. It was at this point that security was not too happy, and they had to put a whole stop to the parade and get Tim off of the float. At the time, Tim was on the float talking to Ariel, asking her to marry him. And Ariel was actually laughing at all this because, I mean, this is just a crazy scenario. A little kid goes and runs straight up on the float and says that he wants to marry you. I'd laugh too. Anyways, though, security finally gets Tim down, and they demand that Tim takes them to his parents. At this point, Tim is throwing a temper tantrum, saying it's his birthday and that they can't touch him and that they were going to get sued. All of this crazy stuff, and eventually, Tim's parents start yelling out, "Don't touch my son! Don't touch my son!" And that's whenever they bring Tim over to his parents. They then tell Tim's parents that they must leave the park immediately. At this point, Tim is just bawling his eyes out. He's all upset, and his parents are getting all rowdy with the security, saying that they could buy out the whole entire park. All this crazy stuff. It was just an insane commotion. Everyone was staring at them. The parade was put on a hold at the time, and they had become the new parade. And for Noah standing there with them, it was extremely embarrassing. He just put his head down and, you know, like just twiddled his thumbs till eventually all of them got kicked out of the park. Now, that was it for them for Disney. And then on the plane ride home, Tim kept talking to Noah, saying how sorry he was that his parents were so bad on the trip, and that he was sorry that Noah had to deal with his awful parents. And Noah was like, no, dude, your parents were awesome. Like, I couldn't have asked for anything more. And Tim was like, all right, I know you're just saying that because you want to be nice, but you could tell the truth. And Noah was like, no, seriously, like, they're amazing. I think you're overreacting a little bit. At that point, Tim pouted a little bit, and he just didn't talk to Noah for the rest of the plane ride home. And yeah, Noah just had a very awkward ride home with Tim's dad in the Lambo. And Noah was thanking him a million times over, and the dad was like, seriously, dude, don't worry about it. We messed up the trip anyways. And you can tell that the dad was just very upset about what had happened, and for some reason he thought that he was the one that messed up. I could only imagine what Tim's mom thought. It seemed that they both thought similarly, and it really just sucked because Tim just absolutely had them under his control. They were like his puppets, and they had an absurd amount of money, and he was honestly taking advantage of them. Anyways, Noah kind of cut ties with Tim after that trip. They played video games a few times, but things were just never the same. Noah knew what type of person Tim was deep down, and that's kind of the end of their friendship. So yeah, like I said, the most spoiled kid I've ever heard of. Today, I have a story for you guys about this super spoiled kid who is so entitled that he ends up trying to buy planet Earth itself. And whenever he doesn't get his ways, he has a big meltdown. Trust me, you guys are gonna love this story. Like the video to keep your air supply going. Otherwise, it's done. Sorry, not sorry. Also, subscribe so we can hit 420 trillion subscribers. We're pretty close, so let's get there. And with that all being said and done, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. So for this story, we're going to call our subscriber Tyler, and Tyler had a pretty close friend ever since elementary school, and we're going to call him Damien. So like I said, Tyler and Damien were pretty close friends ever since elementary school. They were in pretty much all the same classes together, and they also shared a love for video games and comic books. So, you know, pretty close friends. The only thing that they really had different was their family's situation. Tyler was like a middle class student. He had a decent house, nothing amazing, but Damien was extremely filthy rich, and he lived in what was the biggest house in the whole entire community. Now, of course, Tyler didn't care about that whenever they first became friends. Like, he isn't friends just because Damien is rich or anything like that. They've been friends since childhood, so they have a pretty close bond. But recently, Tyler says that Damien has really let the money get to his head, and he has gotten extremely entitled over the years. Now, this had been building up over years. The first incident where Damien started showing signs of his entitlement, Tyler says, happened in middle school. So one day, Damien's father father bought him the latest gaming console. It was the Xbox One at the time, and this wasn't even for his birthday or for Christmas or any special occasion. Damien had just been wanting the Xbox One for a while, and so his parents bought it for him. And of course, since Damien just got the new console, he invited Tyler over to come try it out. And this is whenever the Xbox One was pretty fresh, it was pretty new, so it was a pretty big deal that he had one. So Damien had a bunch of games for the new console, and Tyler had really been wanting to try one particular one. It was the new Call of Duty. However, Damien never let Tyler have a chance to pick a game, and he just kept choosing the games, and whenever Tyler was about to say something like, yo, can we try this? Damien would just cut him off and be like, oh, let's play this game instead. You know, he just didn't care, and he was being kind of rude. Then also, whenever he lost at a game, he would throw this like huge tantrum. He would like yell down to his dad that he needs a new different game and that he has to buy it for him immediately because the one he was playing was making him angry or he didn't like it anymore. And for some reason, his parents would comply, and a few minutes later, like his butler would come up with a few new games. I don't even know like how they got it that fast. I guess the butler would like drive to GameStop or something and buy it for him. But yeah, he just kept getting new games hand delivered to him the second he asked, the second that he was too bad at one of the games or he lost. You know, once he got angry, he would just get a new game in his hands instantly, any game that he asked for. So a few days later, Tyler came back over to play some more Xbox, and he discovered that Damien had bought literally every single game available for the new Xbox One. Like seriously, it was so many games, and Tyler asked him, he was like, dude, how do you have all of these games? This is like pretty much every game that has been released yet. And Damien was like, oh, you know, I get what I want. If I want a game, I'm gonna get it. And then he was like, I just didn't like any of the other ones, so I just kept trying new ones. Then eventually I was like, screw it, I think I want every game. So he just kept telling his butler that he didn't like certain games, and then he would bring him new ones until eventually he had them all. And that was kind of the point where Tyler started to realize the extent of Damien's wealth and how it was starting to affect him. It was clear that he was extremely spoiled, and it was affecting him negatively. And Tyler was able to see that even at a young age. As the years went by, Damien's demands grew increasingly outrageous. There was a time where he forced his parents to buy him a pet lion. He said that it was all he wanted and he didn't care about anything else, and all he wanted was this pet lion. And his parents actually followed through, set up a whole exhibit in his backyard, and got a pet lion. However, Tyler says that eventually the local authorities found out that they had a pet lion in their backyard, and turns out that they weren't exactly following all of the rules correctly. So they ordered Damien's family to return the lion back to a wildlife sanctuary, and that's when Tyler says that Damien threw an absolute fit, and he was screaming and sobbing and just going absolutely crazy, having a tantrum, and it wasn't stopping. So Tyler, being at the house at the time, was like, dude, it's okay, you know, having a lion in the first place is pretty ridiculous, you know, at least they tried. And that's whenever Damien was like, you don't understand, and he just kept going on and on until eventually, to get him to stop, his parents came over and they were like, don't worry, we're gonna find out a way to make this right. Within the next month, Damien had an entire private zoo in his backyard. Now, there were a bunch of other smaller situations leading up to this point. Like I said, it all started with the Xbox One, but Tyler just kept growing more and more not so fond of Damien. He noticed how entitled he was and how spoiled he was, and he kind of just didn't want to be friends with somebody like that. But regardless, their friendship was from so early on, so it was hard to just completely cut something off like that, especially just because he was spoiled. But it was getting harder and harder for Tyler to stay friends with Damien. There was this other situation where in high school, Damien really wanted to be the all-star basketball player. So Damien just said that he wanted to be the all-star player. He didn't really train or anything like that. And during tryouts, he did really awful. But still, for some reason, whenever the listings came out of who was on the high school basketball team, Damien was at the top of the list as the MVP. Turns out Damien's parents actually donated a ton of money to the school to ensure that Damien got a spot on the team at the highest point. Reality is, he probably wouldn't have even made it on the team in the first place. And people started to soon discover this because Damien was not good at basketball. So as they were playing and stuff, his teammates like realized he wasn't that good, but they wouldn't really say anything to him. But the second any of his teammates were not playing that well, or like messed up or missed one of their shots, he would like get on them and be like, this is why we aren't winning our games. Like, you can't even hit a shot. And you know, he was just all rude and stuff to them. And it's just ironic because he wasn't even supposed to be on the team in the first place. He was basically paid to be there, but he was the one handing out complaints and stuff. Meanwhile, he was the worst player and nobody was really complaining about him until eventually that started happening because people had enough of it. And after just a few weeks, the whole entire team had basically turned against him completely, and he was getting made fun of and picked on so much to the point where he eventually just left the team and said, enough of being the all-star basketball player. So with basketball out of the way, Damien decided to pick up a different hobby. He started playing video games, specifically the game Minecraft. Damien wanted to build a huge empire in the game and wanted like all these castles and stuff, but whenever he tried building it, it looked like garbage. So Tyler said instead of improving his building skills or like working on it longer, he rather had his parents pay for a famous Minecraft builder to come over to his house and build stuff for him. And he would come over a couple times a week and make a lot of builds for him, and eventually he had this whole entire virtual empire in the game Minecraft. And whenever Tyler would come over, Damien would be like, I made all of this, I'm the one who built it. But Tyler knew that someone would come over and build it, because during some phone calls he would hear the builder like saying stuff like, oh, you want me to build this, or what do you want me to do here? So he already knew that this was all a lie. Tyler at this point, he already stopped hanging out with Damien as much, so this was like one of the final chances he was gonna give Damien. Like, all right, I'll hang out with him today. If he's still crazy, you know, I might just have to cut him off. So Damien was sitting there explaining to Tyler about how he made all this stuff in Minecraft and how he was like the best builder ever. And you know, he was just blatantly lying. The truth was that a builder was being paid a ton of money to come over to his house and build stuff in his Minecraft world, which is just so ridiculous thinking about that. Like, you know how difficult it would be to even find somebody who's a Minecraft builder who's willing to come over to a kid's house to build on his world. But yeah, somehow they found somebody and gave him a price big enough to actually do it on the weekly, even sometimes multiple times a week. Like, that's quite the interesting job for that guy. Anyways, so as they were playing, Damien was like, you know what, dude, honestly, this world is really great. I spent a lot of time on it. You know, my builds are really amazing, but I'm just kind of bored of it, you know? And Tyler was like, what, dude? How are you bored of this? You have like everything you could possibly want on this world. I would play on this world for the rest of my life if I could, Tyler said. And Damien was like, yeah, you know, it's just, I want to be able to control more. Like, this little world in a video game isn't enough. And that's whenever Damien was like, I have an idea. And he ran down his like 5 flights of stairs to get to the dining room that was on the 6th floor of his mansion. And that's where his parents were just chilling around eating some food. Tyler follows and he shows up a little bit after Damien was there because Damien had sprinted down, but Tyler just wanted to walk. So he shows up and Damien is in the middle of a conversation, and all Tyler hears is, Mother, Father, I want to buy planet Earth. Tyler at this point is just laughing to himself like, dude, there's no way that this is actually his request right now. And the mom, attempting to maintain her composure, explains to Damien, that's impossible. There's no way somebody could buy Earth or roll it like you do in a video game. And now Damien would rarely be told no. This is probably like the 2nd or 3rd time in his entire life he's been told straight up no, even though it wasn't even a straight up no, right? She's like, that's not possible. So it's not like no because we don't want to give it to you. It's like no because there's literally no way that that could happen. But Damien didn't understand that. And mind you, he's a freshman in high school at this point. He's not a little kid anymore, but he still definitely had the mentality of a little kid, and he probably will for the rest of his life, to be honest, the way that he's been treated growing up. But yeah, Damien's face at that point just turned beet red, and he was just staring at his parents with the biggest death stare ever. Tyler says that he looked like he was ready to like blow up the house or something. And that's whenever Damien screamed out, "You've always given me everything I wanted. Why can't I have this?" His voice was echoing through the whole mansion. I mean, this dude was screaming, right? There was some serious tension going on between him and his parents. He was like, why can't I have it? I thought that there was nothing that you couldn't afford. I thought we were the richest family in the world. And the mom was just trying to reason with her son. And she was like, Damien, listen, honey, there's limits onto what money can do. Owning the earth just is not possible. It's absurd. You know what's absurd? A freshman in high school thinking that money could buy the planet Earth. That's absurd. But Damien is one of a kind, I guess. And Damien just couldn't comprehend this for some reason. He really didn't understand why he was being told no. And he was just super angry and super frustrated. With all the anger being built up, he finally had an absolute meltdown. Tyler says that he jumped up onto the kitchen island, started stomping all around on it, and broke the marble, cracked it, and that fell on the ground and shattered all over the place. And then he started kicking down all the bar chairs that were sitting around that table, and they were breaking. He opened up one of the cabinets that had all the glass glasses and just threw them on the ground, started bending spoons and forks out of the silverware drawer, and he was just screaming and yelling the whole entire time. And Tyler the whole entire time is just staring at this situation playing out, and he's like, there's no way I was friends with this guy. Like, what? He was just in absolute disbelief. His parents were just standing there staring, probably contemplating on their parenting decisions his whole entire life. I mean, honestly, the parents deserve this. They raised him awfully. They just gave him literally anything they want. I mean, I get it. They're rich, like super duper, super rich, right? They have a ton of money. Maybe still teach your kid the value of money. That's pretty important. So Damien's tantrum went on for hours. Tyler eventually just left. He was like, screw this. I'm done with Damien. And he decided he wasn't going to be friends with Damien anymore. He didn't straight up tell that to Damien, but Tyler was like, dude, this is ridiculous. I'm leaving. And he seemed pretty mad, and Damien understood that. But Damien was like in his own little world, just in his own little tantrum world. He was super angry. He didn't even acknowledge that Tyler left, right? He just kept going on, crying and yelling and screaming about how he couldn't have planet Earth. Now, of course, they had a ton of money, so it wasn't that big of a deal that Damien broke all the stuff. They were able to replace it pretty quickly, but they realized that they did something wrong along the way of raising him. So the parents decided it was time for a change. They started making Damien go to therapy, which at first he threw more tantrums and did not want to go and said, there's no way I'm going there, until eventually they were able to convince him and he went to his first session. Eventually, after a few months, the therapy worked, I guess, because Damien now understood the value of money. And he even went up to Tyler and was like, dude, I'm sorry about all that. I just didn't get it. My parents never explained to me that some things you just can't have, and I really thought I could have everything. And they eventually became, reconnected a bit. I mean, Tyler was still set back a little bit on their friendship because, like, holy crap, all that stuff was so crazy, but they'd slowly become friends again. Today, I have a story for you guys about this kid who claims that he met Flamingo the YouTuber. He has a bunch of claims about things that happened whenever he met him, and from what he says, Flamingo was very rude to him. I think you guys are gonna find this story pretty funny. I mean, the stuff this kid says and claims is just insane. Like the video right now for 50 bajillion Robux. The boogeyman will show up at your house and hand deliver them to you. Trust me guys, it works. I would know. While you're down there, also subscribe. We're trying to hit 420 trillion subscribers. We're getting pretty close, so let's hit that milestone. And yeah, with that all being said and done, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. So for today's story, we're gonna call our subscriber Jackson. So Jackson was a pretty big fan of Roblox. That was his main game that he usually spent his free time on. And he also watched a bunch of different Roblox YouTubers and stuff like that. And of course, one of the YouTubers he watched was Flamingo. He was a pretty big fan. He had his merch and everything. So whenever he claims that he ran into him, I'm sure he was very surprised. So this all happened whenever one day Jackson was at the grocery store shopping with his mom, and they were just walking around doing their shopping. Jackson was picking out some stuff that he wanted and helping his mom through her shopping list. So they were walking through the snack aisle looking for some of Jackson's favorite chips. That's when Jackson spotted a man in the same aisle who he says had brown hair and seemed to be around like 5'2", 5'3", and he noticed that he was wearing some of Flamingo's merch. The man started walking down the aisle right towards Jackson, and that's whenever Jackson saw his face, and he noticed that this looked just like the person he watched all the time on YouTube. He didn't believe it at first, but as he got closer, he started to realize like this has to be him. I mean, he's wearing the merch and he looks just like him, so surely it's him, right? So Jackson goes up to his mom and he's like, Mom, I think that's Flamingo, the YouTuber I always watch. I think that's him right there. Can I go talk to him, please? And his mom was a little bit skeptical at first. Like, she of course didn't want her son to go and talk to a random stranger, but she was also aware of who Flamingo was because Jackson would always watch him and talk about him. And Jackson talked to his mom about Flamingo and stuff like that. So the name rang the bell, and eventually she agreed. Sure, honey, but be polite and don't bother him too much, okay? Jackson, of course, agreed with a nod, and he eagerly stepped up to Flamingo. And at first he hesitated for a bit. He didn't really know what to say, and he was just kind of standing there watching Flamingo browse through the selection of chips in the snack aisle. Eventually, Jackson built up the courage and tried to get Flamingo's attention, and he was like, excuse me, are you Flamingo, the Roblox YouTuber? Now, Jackson at this point, he was like shaking. He couldn't believe that he was like actually in front of this person who he thought was Flamingo, the YouTuber. Flamingo looked down and he was like, yeah, I am Flamingo. Are you a fan of the videos? Jackson says that he was so excited in this moment and his face just lit up and he was like, I'm Jackson. I'm a huge fan of your videos. You're so funny and I love how you play Roblox. And Flamingo was like, yo, thanks, Jackson. I appreciate it. It's always nice to meet a fan, and he asked if he wanted a picture or anything. And Jackson, of course, agreed, and they took a picture together, and Jackson was like, thank you so much, I love your videos. And then his mom was like, all right, that's enough, honey. Let's continue shopping and, give this man some space. So Jackson had to leave, and they finished up their shopping and went home. So Jackson, right whenever he got home, he first, helped unload the groceries and all that, and then he went on and started watching all of Flamingo's videos. Just watching the videos and thinking to himself, I can't believe I just met this guy, like, in real life. Like, I saw him. I have a picture with him, And then he started thinking to himself, oh my god, I'm gonna be so cool at school once everybody sees that I met Flamingo. But he didn't want to be just cool, right? He wanted to be the coolest cat in all of Cat City, which is what we're gonna call the city that they lived in, Cat City, all right? So he's gonna be the coolest cat in all of Cat City. That's right. So what was Jackson cooking up in his mind to make him the coolest cat? Well, he was coming up with the craziest story about meeting Flamingo. He was going to tell everyone at school, and then he was going to show them the picture that he took with them for proof that it actually happened. So the following Monday, Jackson woke up and he was so excited to share his story with his friends at school. It's all he had been thinking about over the weekend. So Jackson walks into the school building, and first person he sees is his best friend, who we're going to call Toby. He yelled over to his friend and was like, Toby, you won't believe what happened to me this weekend. Come over here. And Toby walks over and he was like, dude, I met Flamingo, the Roblox YouTuber. Toby was like, no way, dude. That's so cool. Well, what happened? Show me, did you get a picture with him or what? And this is exactly the moment that Jackson was waiting for. He finally was going to get to tell the story he had been cooking up in his mind, and tell it he did. Jackson started telling his story, and he was like, so there I was, grocery shopping with my mom, and that's whenever I see Flamingo shopping for chips. So I go up to him, I'm like, dude, Flamingo, I love your videos, like, I'm a big fan, can I get a picture? And that's whenever Flamingo pulled out his laptop and loaded up Roblox and was all like, see this game right here? I'm gonna trap you inside of Roblox for the rest of your life. Jackson then claimed that Flamingo put him inside of the game Roblox because supposedly Flamingo had like some crazy connection to the Roblox servers that nobody had. Well, that's what Jackson was saying anyways. I mean, none of the stuff he was saying actually made any sense. But yeah, for some reason he claims that Flamingo put him inside of the game Roblox. But then of course Jackson was just too smart and he was able to escape within just a couple minutes. Now, Jackson and Toby, they're like middle schoolers, so they like to lie and they like to believe lies. So Toby was believing everything. He was like, dude, no way, that's crazy. What else happened, dude? You gotta tell me. Then Jackson kept going on and he was like, then after I escaped, Flamingo was being so mean to me. He started calling me names and told me that my Roblox character looked stupid and that I was too poor to afford a cool outfit on Roblox. Can you believe he said that to me? And Toby was like, honestly, kind of upset. He was like, wow, I can't believe Flamingo would do that. What a jerk. Jackson was just eating up the attention at this point, and he kept going on and adding more and more things. He said, oh, and when we were at that grocery store, I found one of the Roblox gift cards and I went up to him and asked him if he could buy me some of the Robux, and he said no. I mean, the dude's a millionaire and he said no to me. Like, how rude is that? And Toby just kept seeming more and more upset at the fact that, Flamingo was also one of Toby's favorite YouTubers, and he was just upset that he wasn't the guy that he thought he was, or that's what he was being told anyways. And Toby just really couldn't believe that everything Jackson was saying happened and that Flamingo would act like that in real life. Now, Jackson's story quickly got spread through the school. He would tell people, Toby told friends, and then their friends told friends, and it just got spread all around. Everyone heard the story about Jackson's encounter with Flamingo and how he was super mean to him, and people would come up to Jackson and be like, dude, no way, is Flamingo actually like not a good guy? Was he actually mean? And Jackson would always be like, yeah, he was really mean, he was really rude to me, he wouldn't even buy me Robux, and he trapped me in the game. And this whole drama was just circulating around the school, and Jackson was just absolutely loving that everybody had all of the attention on him. However, it wasn't long before the excitement of Jackson's story began to fade. One day after school, Jackson was hanging out with Toby and their friends, and there was this new kid in school who, for the sake of the story, we're going to call him Ben. So Ben was new to Cat City. He had just moved within the last weekend, and he walked up to the group of friends and he was like, hey Jackson, I heard about your story about Flamingo. That's pretty crazy, but my cousin actually works with Flamingo on some of his videos and he does like editing for him, and he tells me that Flamingo's a really nice guy, so I'm just kind of finding the story hard to believe. At this point, Jackson felt his heart sink to the floor, realizing that his lies might soon be exposed to the whole entire school. Now, of course, the new kid could also potentially be lying, but did he really have a reason to lie about this? I don't know. Jackson responded, well, your cousin must not know him that well because I'm telling you, he was super mean to me. Now, Ben was not buying it. I mean, he was open to it being true, you know, but Jackson was not convincing him. He said, that's strange. Maybe I should ask my cousin to find out what really happened. Jackson's stomach was turned into a knot over this. Like, if this was true and Ben's cousin actually edited for Flamingo, everyone was gonna know that he was making this all up, and nobody was gonna like Jackson because he basically ruined everybody's favorite Roblox YouTuber at school. But Jackson tried to maintain his composure, hoping that everything would go fine, and he was like, yeah, go ahead. I'm not lying. I swear, this is true. Ask him. It's fine. Over the next few days, Jackson's anxiety just kept growing and growing. He didn't know if his lie was going to be exposed to the whole entire school. Like, did Ben tell his cousin and get in contact with Flamingo and like talk to him and find out the truth? Or was Ben just lying for attention on himself, as, you know, he just moved to the school, so maybe he was trying to look like the cool guy to all the people, like, oh, my cousin edits for Flamingo, look at me. Jackson just didn't know though, and he was extremely anxious every day, and he was just constantly thinking about this whole entire story that he told, and you know, how it started as just a fun little tale to gain a little bit of attention, but now it was quickly spiraling out of control. It could really turn his whole entire school against him and make nobody like him. After a few days, Jackson was standing in the hallway with his friends once again, and that's whenever Ben walked up to them again. Jackson was terrified at this point, but was also kind of relieved because he didn't have to sit around wondering all day anymore, and it was either going to be good news or bad news, but regardless, he was going to know the news. So anyways, Ben comes up to them and he goes, hey Jackson, so I talked to my cousin and he said that Flamingo did actually meet somebody at a grocery store here. Supposedly he was on a business trip in the area, and you know, that all adds up, right? You definitely met him. However, Flamingo says all that happened was that he took a picture with you and then your mom came over and said, you know, give him some space and let's go. He doesn't recall ever locking you inside of the game Roblox or even being asked to buy Robux. And he even said that he would have definitely bought the Robux for the kid. So Jackson, are you sure you're not making this up? Now this was right in front of all of Jackson's friends. Like I said, it was Jackson and his friend group standing around, and that's whenever Toby took his step out and he was like, hey man, he's not making this up. Of course he's not. Jackson would never lie. At this point, Jackson's face is just completely red, and everyone looked over to him and he was like, I'm not lying. Maybe he just doesn't remember what happened because he meets so many fans in a day or something. Like, I'm telling you guys, this happened. He was mean. And Ben was like, I don't know, man. My cousin said Flamingo would definitely remember, you know, something like this. And also, he does remember meeting you, which shows, yeah, you know, part of this story is true, but I think you were making a little bit extra up. The other kids started whispering among themselves, and Jackson really felt the weight of everybody's judgment on him. His heart was pounding, and he realized he couldn't keep up this lie any longer. He was on the edge of tears, which, to be honest, is a bit much. Like, I don't know about crying over lying about a Roblox YouTuber to your school, but, you know, I get it. It's stressful, you're caught in a lie, and the only thing you could do is admit the truth. And that's what he did. Jackson said, okay, fine, I made it up. His voice was all shaky, and he just continued on to say, I just wanted to have an exciting story, and I thought it would make me popular, and I could finally be cool. I'm sorry, guys. All the kids around him were muttering. I mean, he had basically convinced the whole entire school that it wasn't cool to watch Flamingo anymore because he was mean. Eventually, it got pretty silent, and Jackson was just standing there, bracing himself for whatever was to come. That's whenever Toby finally put his hand on Jackson's shoulder and was like, it's okay, Jackson, you know, we all make mistakes. Just be honest next time, all right? And at first you could tell people were pretty mad at Jackson, but after Toby said that, people seemed to forgive him, and everyone kind of went back to doing their own thing. A few people went up to him and were like, not cool, man, and were like complaining because they hadn't watched Flamingo in days because they thought that his story was true. But like I said, most of the people were pretty forgiving. Jackson looked over to Toby and he was like, dude, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I promise I'll be honest from now on. I think I learned my lesson.